the equipment. So I'm going to give you to them.
Awesome. Thank you, Augie. Thank you. How's everybody doing? Everybody watching the Super Bowl? I think more people would have been here if it wasn't for the Super Bowl. You know, I think, what is it called? Super Monday, where a lot of people don't show up the next day. So
Hangover Monday.
Hangover Monday, whatever you want to call it. So thanks for coming. Like you said, I'm Rob Grookett. I work at the Office of Distributed Learning. I have about 15 years at the university working with online courses and recording and accessibility and all these things. Jeff's worked in production for many years.
First year here, and used to work with Media Services many years ago. Did video production, animations, set design. We did a lot of television work. So long experience there.
Do y'all mind doing a quick introduction? Just to say, I guess, say who you are, what department you're from, and maybe a little bit of why you're here. We'll start.
My name is Julian. I'm from the Department of Medical Science. I'm a graduate teaching assistant. Just want to learn more about these sort of toolkits that are available.
Awesome.
I'm Christopher Krause. I'm from the Department of Geography, and I'm a PhD student and instructor of record. And I'm here because I've done some videos of recording them, doing a PowerPoint with the little webcam in the corner, but I want to see what I can do beyond just something like that.
Awesome.
My name is Mike Walsh. I'm an associate professor in the School of Medicine and do a lot of sort of online teaching, and I've created a lot of content with Adobe Connect, and I'm looking to make that a little bit more accessible with captioning and that kind of thing, and I'm looking for solutions on technology to do that.
Right. I think I've seen some of your videos
Oh.
throughout the years. Through Media Services, I think you did.
No, I don't think
Were
so.
you in a classroom studio ever?
No.
Okay. Maybe I just recognize you. I don't know.
Yeah, would love to learn more.
Thanks for coming.
Sure.
Eric Robinson in the journalism school. I had an aborted attempt to make an online version of my class, so I'm not quite ready to try again, but I'm gathering intelligence.
That's smart.
Donna Davis, actually from the South Carolina Department of Education.
Oh, cool.
We were told we could come.
Yes, I did. I told you to come.
And we are about to embark upon an online training system for our partners. And we wanted to know a lot more about recording online courses and, of course, having them accessible.
Gotcha. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
I'm Nick Eaton, I'm with Donna from the Department of Ed, so kind of the same purpose.
Right.
Pick up some new pointers and skills or something that's we're really interested in, making something really nice and dynamic and get into this, start as we go to our class.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming. All right, so some of the stuff might not fit with y'all because it's university related, but just to let y'all know, this is our mission. This is what we do at the Office of Distributed Learning. If you don't know what that is or you haven't heard of that, it's online learning. So for us, it's blended or 100% online. So 50% blended and above. Those are the courses that we deal with. So you can read this if you want. I'm not going to read the whole thing, of course. Some of the services that we provide, we advise through the course development process, the online course development process. We help with recording and producing online lectures. We produce transcription and closed captioning for those videos or for videos that are recorded elsewhere. We also have a testing center, so we provide proctoring options, online and in person. And we have student support, and we also promote online courses at USC. So that's a big part of what we do, get more people signing up for online programs and courses. Okay, so let's start out with a little bit of some of the questions you might ask yourself if you're just starting out, if you haven't recorded before. This is something that we've dealt with for many years through our experience. So do you start recording before a semester starts or during a semester? So we recommend that you start as soon as you can and leave a lot of time in between to really get everything in place and get it the way you want it to be. We have some instructors that literally come in the very last minute and think that they can knock out these these online lectures, and what they find is there's a lot more time that it takes to really do it. And just the transcription alone is
Yeah, then they're upset about the quality of the product they've done. They say, oh, I wish I'd have done it earlier. I could have done this, this, and this. Because they come in and we start talking to them and say, you know, you could have done this and this and this. And so anyway, yeah, pre-planning, a semester ahead is a great way to do it.
Yeah. We do have some instructors that actually record every one of their video lectures during the semester. So, you know, they'll record their lectures for the next week. And
Yes.
that's fine if you can do it, but if you have any kind of technical difficulty, that could be an issue. So you also want to think about, do you want to record at home or in your office or use a service on campus? You know, if you record at home or in your office, you have to start thinking about things like what equipment you're going to use, where you're going to record, what it's going to look like. It's a little more difficult because you have to spend some extra money just to get to that point. And you have to think about, are you going to edit these videos yourself? Or are you going to have someone else edit them? Because you do want to edit them. We have some instructors that really put a lot of time into editing. They'll literally edit out every single like I'm doing now, every or but some of them just hit start, they record, and then they hit stop, and that's what they have. A lot of our studio classrooms across campus, the way they're set up is they start at a particular time. So when you walk into that classroom, if the class is at 11, it starts recording at 11. So what you get a lot of time with those videos is, you know, students go back to watch them, they have to fast forward 5 to 10 minutes just to get past, you know, the instructor, you know, checking his email or having a conversation with the student. So those kind of things you want to think about. And you want to think about what your video is going to look like. Are you going to use just voice over PowerPoint with no video of yourself? Or do you want to have kind of a switching back and forth video where you see yourself and you go back to your PowerPoint with voiceover? And maybe you don't want to use PowerPoint. Maybe you want to use Prezi or some other kind of slide software. And you want to think about if you want to do an introduction video. So we recommend you do an introduction video of yourself without any kind of PowerPoint. So even if it's just a short little 2-minute introduction of yourself, it's a really good way to engage and start off on a good foot with your students so they know who you are. And, you know, you might not just say, hey, this is whatever course and this is what you're going to learn. You might want to, you know, talk a little bit about yourself and your experiences, just to personalize it just a little bit.
Yeah, maybe, you know, like why you got into this field and kind of, you know, sort of sell the product.
Yeah.
Sure. Right up front.
And of course, you want to think about where the video is going to be hosted. So at this university, it's all over the place. Their faculty and instructors are using all types of hosting services. We don't really have one service that's an enterprise solution. There is one for online courses, but it's not available to everybody. And I'll get into that a little later. And, you know, most of the instructors here use Blackboard. So you want to think about, okay, do I want to host it within Blackboard or do I want to have a link that I send to students? What we have found though is that if you upload any kind of video directly into Blackboard, there are a lot of issues. So we recommend if you record your lectures with whatever software, upload it to another hosting service and then embed into your LMS. All right, so let's talk about some more best practices. A lot of these things are, you know, common sense, I think, most of it. But obviously, you want to prepare your script and materials. Now, this is kind of a situation where, just like we've seen in our experience, where some instructors completely write out their script. The whole thing. It's all written out. They just read from the script.
Which gives you your transcript. So you're already compliant once you've done that.
Right, so you don't have to go back and make a transcript from that. But a lot of people find they can't do that, or they're not comfortable doing that, which I totally understand. I mean, but it's also difficult to kind of go in it without any kind of script. So it's good to maybe have some kind of notes or some kind of outline to go off of. And that way, even going back to do a transcription, it's still easier to get a final product and to get close to 100% accuracy of your transcripts. Begin with accessibility. We've already talked about that a little bit. You want to begin with that in mind. The CTE website has a lot of links that you can check out that help you with this. So you may ask yourself, okay, why, can I just fix that later? You can, but there's a lot more work involved if you wait. So you can design your course, have all of your lectures and all your videos looking good, but then you find out, okay, they're not really accessible. Now I have to go back and fix all of this. And that's kind of where we come into play. We catch a lot of those. We have some courses that they find that they're not accessible, so they might have one student with a disability in that course. So then we're told, they send the videos to us, and then we have to transcribe them. Then we have a grad assistant that has to go in and actually clean them up and make them accurate, which takes a lot of time. So that's not something, if you have a course starting on this particular date and a couple of days before that, you think you're ready to go and then you find out they're not accessible, there's really nothing we can do. That's not going to be done quickly. You want to choose the appropriate setting. So this is another thing we've noticed. So some of the videos that we've gotten to transcribe, we've noticed that, okay, there's a dog barking in the background, there's a construction going on, there's children, you hear all these noises in the background, it's really distracting. And we've tried to clean that audio up, and there's really...
Yeah, I just got through doing many hours of cleanup on this lady's in her course, and the entire time she was banging around on the table, scooting around, picking up papers, getting away from the microphone and coming close. So I'm having to do levels like this. So it was a mess. So yeah, you have to be aware of when you're sitting in front of that microphone, be fairly still and clear and speak into the microphone, not move around, not bang around.
Yeah, you just have to really think about where you're recording. You could be in a room that has really bad acoustics and it sounds like you're in a tunnel. Those are the things you really have to think about, because you can record that and then later notice that, okay, this sounds really bad. I'm gonna have to redo the whole thing, which does happen a lot. Testing your equipment, I guess that's a pretty common sense thing to do. But you do wanna make sure your sound is good and your lighting is good. So I would do kind of a test recording, take a look at it, listen to it, make sure it's good enough, it's high quality enough. If not, that's something we can help.
Yeah, I was going to say, we consult with people. So if you needed to come to us, if you're going to do it on your own and you say, okay, I don't know what equipment to get or whatever, come talk to us and we can give you a list of things that you need and things to look out for. So it's available.
Another big thing that we've been telling people lately, well, for a couple of years, keep it short. So all this research has been coming out in the past few years showing that not just with students, but anybody watching any video online, their attention span after about 5 minutes just drops. So you want to keep your videos, try to get them between 5 and 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the most. You might have a lecture that's usually in class, maybe an hour and a half long. Just find kind of a natural breaking point and make them chunks. You could have Module 1, Part 1, Module 1, Part 2, just kind of separate them. Research has shown that that's the best thing to do. We've had a lot of pushback on that throughout the past few years, which I completely understand, because it's not, you have a lot of faculty say, oh, well, I teach in my regular course and I speak for an hour and a half, 2 hours. What's the difference? Well, they're probably not listening to. Yeah.
Would you recommend doing that chunking before or after? So would you record an hour lecture and then find the natural breaks, or would you make scripts that were here's 5 minutes,
that's ideal. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely do it before, because we've had to go back and chunk videos a lot, actually.
And then a lot of times they just leave it up to us and say, well, just find a place to cut it.
Yeah. Which
sometimes there's not a really good place.
Yeah, it's harder to do that after the fact. So it's better to think about that ahead of time. Okay, you want to connect with your audience. You want to be professional but relatable and personable. And just kind of a little technical thing to think about. You want to set the camera at eye level. That's just one of those things that, if someone's looking up the whole time, it just doesn't look natural, and there's a disconnect there. That's something to really think about. Signal important information to viewers. That's kind of what you do anyway if you're teaching a course. So it makes sense for an online course to do the same thing. And eliminate any extraneous information. We have this one faculty member, Hannah, who's been recording with us for a while. And she actually sees recording her online lectures as a way to help her teach her regular face-to-face course. Because she's able to really squeeze down all of her information and really find what's important and not have a lot of filler. So that's helped her actually teach face-to-face. A couple other things. This is kind of a surprise to me. This is something that I've learned the past year or so. You want to speak relatively quickly with enthusiasm. So a lot of faculty, when they record their videos, they speak very slowly because they want to make sure every word is heard and is very clear, which makes sense. But apparently, research has shown that students really, they want the information. They want it fast. But one thing to consider with this, with most hosting sites, there's usually a setting where students can change the speed. So if they need to slow it down, they can. If they need to speed it up, they can. Not all hosting services have that, but that's something to think about too. And you might want to even mention that to your students and say, hey, if I'm speaking too slowly, just speed it up. You can go, 1.5 times, 2 times on up, which anytime I watch a video, that's what I do, because I don't like the wasted times. That's a thing that I deal with too. Use a conversational style. That's kind of a little bit of what we talked about already. The personalization principle says that the use of conversational rather than formal language during multimedia instruction has shown to have a large effect on students' learning. So that's just another thing to think about. You want to match modalities, use the audio, verbal, and visual pictorial channels to convey new information. When I think about that, I think about kind of our engineering courses where we actually use a light board, which I don't know if you're aware of what that is, but you're writing on a clear glass plane that lights up. So that's kind of an example of that, where as you're teaching, you're kind of going through your formulas and talking as you're doing it. That's one way to do it. Edit your video, of course, like I mentioned before. If you don't have any kind of editing experience yourself, there's a ton of different software out there where you can do simple edits. So even if you don't know how to do, these transitions from scene to scene, you can at least cut off the beginning and the end to where it looks a little better. So you're starting at a more logical starting point. Like I mentioned before, you want to embed your video, or if you can't do that, just use direct links.
Shelf life.
Oh, is that there?
Yeah.
I skipped one. Yeah. Okay. That's a big one.
Yeah, it is a big one.
We have a lot of courses at USC right now that instructors have used many, many years. I mean, I'm talking all the way back to the 90s, and it still says 1996 on the video.
Avoid all dates. Avoid mentioning dates. You don't even want to
Current
say
events.
Yeah, you don't want to say something like, okay, this is due by Monday afternoon or whatever. You just leave all that out and do that in your Blackboard.
Yeah, and you can say, okay, this is going to be an assignment's going to be due, but just leave out the exact date. That way, each semester you can just students will have a list of those exam dates anyway. Some other considerations to think about, if you're used to using a Blackboard or a whiteboard, consider using a document camera. That's kind of the overhead projector. Or if you want to use maybe an iPad or something like that and record the screen, you can use that to write out like you normally would in a class. And this is kind of what we've already talked about too. You want to determine whether you want to use these lectures for later use. So, and that completely changes the way you teach. So, we have some courses that literally they go once, and all those videos are never used again. So you're probably going to teach and record your videos differently than you would if you're packaging a full course that you're going to use over and over again. Some other technical things to think about, what you wear. This is probably not good for recording. Any kind of stripes, you want to stick with maybe a solid color shirt. You might have seen on the news or some other broadcast where if someone's wearing a shirt like this, it's kind of gets distorted. You kind of see movement almost.
Mm-hmm. It's a moire pattern.
Moire pattern? Mm-hmm. I don't know what that is. And you want to avoid wearing glasses if you can. But if you have to have glasses, you can change the direction of your lighting to kind of avoid that bright lights reflecting on the front. We've had issues with that. It's actually not that easy to fix.
No, especially if you're working off of a monitor. You're getting that reflection off the monitor. There's just no getting around that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. What are some challenges that y'all have had? If you have anything to share, if you've recorded anything before, I think you've already kind of mentioned something.
Yeah, I've done a few. I did like some review videos for my students before. So before their exams, I had my students like, what are like the top 3 things that are confusing you? And then from that, I made like 4 or 5 like 5-minute videos reviewing each of those topics. And I found myself like, I kind of wanted to avoid editing. So like if I made a mistake, I just stopped and started over again.
Right.
Which I think like, I guess is possible since like they were short, but I still felt like I was taking longer than I should have. And then, yeah, for me, I just had my PowerPoint and then like the little, webcam thing. And I noticed I didn't notice this, of course, until after I'd given them to my students, but the placement of my video, at some points, it covered up stuff on my slides.
Right.
Of, like, I was directly referring to like this part of the slide, and they can't see that part of the slide.
Right.
So that was just like a challenge like I kind of observed just on the fly. I hadn't really considered that because on my screen, I wasn't seeing my video.
Exactly.
I was only seeing my PowerPoint as I was presenting.
Yeah, that's actually something that we see just about every single time someone comes into our studio to record the first time. They'll start off and they're thinking, oh, this is not going to be a problem. I'll knock this out, and they do the same thing. They'll do the first one, and it's just not anywhere close to what they thought it would be. Until you put yourself, unless you're used to being in front of a camera, it's a little jarring, especially if you have some kind of a preview screen where you see yourself. So that's an issue we see all the time, where it's good to practice. It's really good to maybe record some example videos or practice videos to see where you are. We have some courses where you can actually see from the first lecture to the last lecture how it got better over time. The first lecture was okay. Their final lecture was amazing. So, which is fine. It still worked, but I'm sure students could probably notice it too. They looked really uncomfortable that first time. They got better.
And along the lines of covering things up, like if you've got a picture within a picture, obviously you got a plan for that. And in order to do that effectively, what you want to make sure you're doing, if you're using PowerPoint or whatever software you're using, make sure it's widescreen. Don't use the default, which pops up as a 4:3 old-fashioned format, because everybody's device is widescreen now. So don't even bother with that. But I see it all the time. Somebody comes in, first time, they sit down, I say, you might want to go back and change your PowerPoint. Yeah.
Another thing I've
You
noticed,
get a lot more information on there too. It's easier to see, easier to read.
right? And another thing I've noticed with the little box, the picture-in-picture thing, a lot of times when someone's recording, they're looking at their PowerPoint as they're recording their face, and they're looking one direction. And then once the video is done, depending on where they are on the screen, they might be looking away from the PowerPoint. It just looks really awkward when they're pointing something out, but they're looking over here, and the PowerPoint's over here.
I learned that too because when I was doing it the first time, my webcam was, I have 2 monitors. My webcam was on a different monitor than where my PowerPoint was. So I was always looking not at the camera.
Oh, right,
So then I just switched my PowerPoint to have the thing on the other screen, so it looked at least a little bit more natural.
right.
I was still looking more down than up because the webcam was on the top of the monitor.
Yeah, that's definitely another thing to think about that could pop up that you don't think about initially until you actually start recording. They're like, oh, that's an issue. I got to fix that.
Well, there's even things like with the webcam, is it on autofocus? You want to turn that off because if you lean in or anything like that, all of a sudden you're going in and out of focus. Just little things like that. There's a lot of little details.
Yeah. Any other challenges you want to talk about?
The reason I gave up on it. One first was I didn't want to screw up, so I went very slowly. And when I looked at it, like painfully slowly, because I was thinking, I knew generally what I was going to say,
Right.
but I didn't want to say something wrong. And so I actually did edit out all this and this time. And I was just doing voice, so it was easier.
Right.
But the big problem I had, I teach something that changes frequently. And I just, once I recorded it, there was a change.
Right.
I'm like, well, I can't redo the whole thing.
Well,
So you can't insert.
Yeah, I
new
know,
materials.
but,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's going to be over. I mean, I make 3 or 4 changes a week to my class.
wow.
That's
At
tough.
least.
Yeah, that makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
Having to
It's a lot of
constantly.
learning.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And I've seen some other courses like that. I've seen some where they have multiple people teaching the same course in the same video, and it'll go from 3 different instructors with different audio and different. One will be super loud, and one will be super low. And they've done the same thing too, where they've made changes. We've actually had to go in and add, change the slide, because some statistic
Exactly.
changed.
Exactly, that was the problem I was having, and I was like, I need to make this modular. Then I just this is a big effort.
Right.
I don't know the wherewithal to do it.
What were you going to say?
So I've used a lot of sort of Adobe Connect based narrated PowerPoints, which students really respond well to.
Right.
The challenge that I have is I don't pre-script. I mean, I don't go from a script, but my natural style is very conversational. So students respond well to that.
Right.
But my problem is I get to the end of that and then I've got an inaccessible piece because I don't have any kind of transcript behind that.
Exactly.
And
especially now that the university's not supporting Adobe Connect as much as they're going more towards
Adobe Connect
Captivate.
is disappearing as of December.
Right.
And where that content's going to be hosted is a very interesting question.
Yes, I've been wondering about that myself. There's a lot, we actually have a lot of courses that are, we call them mastered, where they've been recorded years ago, and they're, just like we said, they're being used each semester. Some of those are only in Adobe Connect.
Right.
So if they have to find a way to either download those as an MP4 or something, or move them to a different server.
And it's part of what I came here for, is to kind of get some ideas about that. One thought that I had was to use something like Camtasia, run it, extract that MP4, put that on YouTube, let YouTube's voice recognition transcript it, correct the transcripts, and then I'd have a piece.
Yeah.
Because I think MP4 is a more accessible format anyway.
Yeah,
it is.
But I just wondered if there weren't alternatives to that.
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
approach.
We'll talk a lot about accessibility because it's a huge deal for everybody now. That everybody's trying to figure out, what do I do? We're one of the only offices on campus that's really offering support for that. So we'll talk about that in a second. Oh, accessibility, here we are. So when we're talking about recording online videos, some of the things to think about, obviously the closed captioning is the one thing that everybody thinks of, but you also want to think about font size. They recommend 24 point and above for any kind of slide. And you want to think about contrast for your text and background slides. So that's something else that's not the typical closed captioning that everybody
Yes,
thinks about.
there's different types of color blindness, so you've got to avoid certain colors, yellows and things like that.
And to a certain perspective, and you can maybe speak to this, I'll never put more than 3 points on a slide because once you crowd it gets not only less
Right.
accessible, but it's less sticky.
Exactly.
Cognitive.
Yeah, not like this. That's a lot of text. Which, this is 24 and above, but I don't know if it's completely accessible. So we have a lot of instructors that ask us why. Why do I have to do this? Or why do I need to do this? You know, I don't have someone with a disability in my course. Why does it matter? Well, what we found is that apparently 76% of college students don't even tell anyone that they have a disability, a learning disability. So you probably do have someone in your course with a disability, you just don't know it. So it's better to just do it across the board, even if you don't have a documented student with a disability. And it's also shown, and I completely agree with this, even if you don't have a disability, a majority of students use closed captions anyway. I use them all the time too. It helps me to be able to see the words as I'm listening. Depending on the person and how they speak, you might not take it all in for whatever reason. We have a lot of instructors where sometimes you can't understand what they're saying. So just the clarity of that is a big deal. Apparently 90% of all students who use closed captions find them at least moderately helpful for learning. Just not a big surprise. There are specific ways in which closed captions can aid learning include comprehension, accuracy, engagement, and retention. All right, so this is the accessibility guidelines. So this came from the Office of Civil Rights. These are their guidelines. This is what we're supposed to be following. And we are for the most part, but a lot of people are just now learning about this. Universities are being sued across the United States. This is something that we have to fix, and we have to fix it as soon as possible. So for compliance with federal disability laws, videos have to be synchronously captioned and a transcript provided. So you have to have both. If you cannot get to the source code of a file, then a transcript is okay. There is an exemption if the video is being used only once. So let's say it's being used for this one course and one semester, and that's it. Technically, you don't have to provide closed captioning or transcript, according to the law.
Unless it's asked for.
Unless it's asked for. Unless there's a documented student with a disability. So that's something to think about, but we recommend just do it anyway, because this could change. And the university is very close to coming up with their own guidelines, which I would imagine it's going to go a step further than this. If you're using Blackboard, you probably already know about this. So this is our LMS at USC. If you're not aware, Blackboard, they added this new feature called Ally, but I think we call it alternative formats. Everything that gets uploaded into Blackboard gets checked for accessibility. This is just kind of an FYI thing. If you're curious if your content, if it's accessible or not, this is kind of the first way to look to see. It's got little gauges here. Obviously, the green means you're okay. Red means you're not accessible at all. It's just kind of you get graded, basically. This is kind of a question that comes up every once in a while. Do you know the difference between closed and open captions? Anybody know? No? So just to say it simply, closed captions you can turn off or on. Open captions are burned into the video. So we recommend using closed captions and not open. You don't see open captions very, very often anyway, I don't think. Can't remember the last time I've seen that. But it's good to be able to, it's good to have, to let students really control what to do with that. And there's actually, it's changing each year now to where students with a disability, for certain captions, they can actually change the way those captions look based off of their settings on their computer. So they can change the contrast, they can change the font, they can change the size. And I would imagine in a couple years that's going to be across the board.
And to do that, they have to use the VTT file format. There's SRT, which has been around for a long time, and a whole bunch of other file formats for doing closed captioning, but it needs to be the VTT to make all those other functions functional. So
if you're going to close caption your videos or get a transcription done and you need it now, you need it by next week, whatever, and you're willing to pay for it, there are options out there where you send your videos off, and I think within 24 hours, there's a 24-hour turnaround time with Rev and 3Play Media. They'll send you the transcript and a closed caption file. But as you can see, $1 per minute, $3 per minute, it's expensive, especially if we've had some courses where, it's thousands of dollars. The good thing is there's a lot of new software out there, a lot of new sites that are doing this for a lot cheaper. So there's also Transcribe, Otter. They're a little cheaper, but there's a bunch of them. If you just search on Google, there's probably 50 different services that are free. They're just not done instantly. And the accuracy might not be as good. So even if you're doing it yourself and you get a transcript back, it's probably not going to be 100%. So you still have to go through it. You still have to look at it and fix certain things. It's not going to get certain scientific words right. It might not get your name right. It might not get the name of the course right. It's a lot of little details that matter. We actually use Dragon Naturally Speaking for certain courses. We also use YouTube, which YouTube is one of the most accurate ways to do it out there right now. It's shocking. The only problem with that is it doesn't do punctuation and capitalization. So we kind of have to weigh the pros and cons.
Can you edit with YouTube automatically?
Yes,
How do you do that?
there's an editor. It's very easy to use.
I'll show you that in a second. And this is just kind of FYI. If you're worried about being accessible for a live course or a live presentation, you can use Microsoft Translator. It's a new feature that's been added. We all have access on campus since we have the Office 365 suite. And it's literally just a little add-on that you click, and it'll start listening, and it'll add closed captions to the bottom of your slides. And it uses AI, so it supposedly gets better over time. From what I've seen, it looks pretty good, but it's not quite there. But this is still better than nothing. But like I said, this is just for live. You wouldn't want to use this for recording, because then it would be open captions. So, okay, YouTube. Mentioned YouTube. It's a free service, and it does automatic captioning. So every time you upload a video to YouTube, it's already captioning it for you, even if you don't realize it. And it auto syncs, so it syncs with your audio. You don't have to worry about doing that yourself. It's very accurate. I don't know what the exact number is, but I would imagine it's probably 85%, maybe.
If you have a transcript, if you've already created a transcript, if it's pre-planned like that, you can input it into YouTube and have it automatically upload and sync with it.
So if you have the transcripts, but you don't have the closed captioning file, then you can take your transcript, upload it with your video on YouTube, and it'll set the timings. That way you'll have the closed captioning. So there are a lot of different ways to do it. And you can download the transcription file. Like you mentioned before, the VTT is the one that we recommend. So just like you mentioned before, how do you do it? We have a video on our website. I'm going to write down this address. It kind of explains how to do it and how to use the editor. This is what our grad student does. We upload all of our videos into YouTube. They're unlisted. They can't be seen. But our grad assistant goes in and cleans it up. So they fixes all the punctuation, the missed words, corrects everything, and we get to a point where we think it's close to over 99% correct.
It's 99.4, somewhere in there.
So that's a service that we provide. So if you have online videos, or if you have videos that aren't transcribed and you need them transcribed, and it's for an online course, then we can help with that. So you can just send them to us. That's a free service if you need that done.
Does it have to be a video? In other words, could it be a narrated PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
We will chat.
Cool. Yeah, so go here if you want to do it yourself. If you don't want to pay someone to do it, it's really simple. They have a really easy editor in YouTube. So I did this just to kind of show you a comparison of the different transcriptioning services or services that transcribe videos. And you just want to take a look at it. I don't know if you can see it. I know it's small print, but they're all fairly accurate. You can see with YouTube, the punctuation isn't there, the capitalization's not there. Stream does a pretty good job. They're all pretty accurate, but they all need to be cleaned up. So there is no perfect solution yet. All right, so let's talk about hosting options. Like I mentioned before, we don't have an enterprise solution on campus other than Ensembl. Ensembl is an enterprise solution.
If you have an online course, it
Right.
can be hosted on there.
It's not available to all USC courses, just online. YouTube, Vimeo, we actually use Vimeo for our videos. Instructors that come in and use our studio, we host their videos on Vimeo, and it just looks nice. You have kind of a playlist, and you can kind of click through Module 1, Module 2, Module 3.
And unlike YouTube, you don't have all the distractions on the side. So,
Like I mentioned before, hosting video with YouTube. The only issue that we've seen with that is there's no password protection. So if you want to make it only available to your students with a password, that's not really an option. You can make it unlisted, but it's still out there. So if someone has a link, they can share the link if you're worried about it being shared. Vimeo, same thing. There is password protection. That's one of the main reasons that we use it. Okay, so this is Ensembl. Just quickly go over this real quick. So like we said, this is an enterprise solution through DOIT. If you're interested in hosting your online courses.
Extreme position we've known for.
when I said media services, it's really DOIT. So,
Stream, this is another service. This is through Office 365. One of the issues that we have with this is the password protection again. That's something that if they fix that, I think Stream would be a really good solution for a lot of faculty. Yeah.
I see that we have the Microsoft Office Suite too, and I've seen it in there, and I kind of went into play with it, and just really looked at it. But I assume it works and integrates with all the other. Like, did you just say something about Microsoft Translator and things like that,
Yes.
where you have the closed captioning and all that? Would that make it a little bit more seamless to use something like that?
Yeah. Honestly, the biggest thing that I like about it is you have the transcript over here as the person speaking.
Yeah.
And if a student wants to kind of find one place to go to, or whoever's watching the video, they can search the transcript and it'll go directly to that spot in the video.
Right. Now, they also have, but usually with Microsoft products, you have to have a login anyway to get in. So if it doesn't have the
Right.
password, you kind of have to have some kind of password just to access.
Yes.
Right.
For our issue on campus is that we don't want it available to all students. So we want to be able to block it in just for that one particular course, which that's one thing that they haven't quite figured out yet. Or it's one little thing that they haven't allowed us to do. It's all this is new for us, for the university, so they're still kind of unveiling it slowly. All right.
okay, so I started talking about the different types of course recording services. So media services, like I said, they're available to all distributed learning online courses. So if you want to get in contact with them if you want to go in and do a live course, they've got directors there. They'll help you out and guide you through the entire thing. You just go up and teach like you're teaching on a face-to-face course. And like I said, they can do pre-recorded stuff. If you want to go in and just record all your course lectures, you just get on a schedule with them and they'll take care of that too, which is what we do too. But we also, I'll tell you in a minute, it's a little different what we do. Again, the guest lecture recording, they can do one-offs and that kind of thing. However, if you have a guest lecturer coming in your face-to-face class and you want to use it for your online, then you would have to pay to have that recorded through them. They will do some editing for you. They don't do a lot. Generally, it's like, I need to drop in some PowerPoints over this, and they give you a list, but they have somebody that goes in and does that. They just generally just put like a title slate up and then cut it off at the end, and it's done. Their hosting again is on Ensembl, which is their sort of an enterprise solution. Again, like I said, you put in a ticket through DOIT for guest lectures, and if you're submitting your course to the registrar, then you need to let them know that there's a place to sign up for it where you need to have a classroom studio reserved. There are a couple of other departments that have studios. The Arnold School has one. The Journalism School has one. Augie uses it. There are a few others. ComD, which is part of the Arnold School, they actually have a room. Pharmacy, they do all of their own recordings. They actually have a little setup where they do all of their online courses. They manage it and do the whole thing through pharmacy. Let's see, who else was there? No?
Engineering.
Well, yeah, engineering. They have a couple of enhanced classrooms that you can record through. Okay, there's a new thing coming. It's sort of out there. It's not quite up and running yet, but the One Button Studio, where basically it's like a kind of a recording booth. It's a small room. You go into it, you plug in your flash drive. You can bring your laptop or use the one that's there, and hit record. You've got a monitor that you can use if you've got PowerPoints and stuff like that you need to read off of. And it's just camera on you, and you just go. And it's a raw recording, so there's not going to be any editing unless you take it back and do it yourself. But it's going to be open to students to use as well as faculty. So that's an advantage. Our studios, we don't generally allow students to use our studios, strictly for faculty or for grad students assisting faculty. So again, we do lecture capture is our main thing, and the transcription. All of this is free, by the way. Everything's free to use, and we have high quality equipment. We just ordered some really high end cameras that are coming in. Right now, we've mostly been using a pretty good webcam, but you have to go in every time and make sure all the settings are just right, the color balance and all that kind of stuff. Once we get these other cameras in, we'll lock them down on their settings, and everything will be high quality. It's super sharp, super clean. We have backgrounds. We have photo backgrounds. We have images of the horseshoe, that kind of thing, if you want to use that as a background. We can do green screen, which opens it up to pretty much anything you want.
I'm going to go ahead and play that video since I think we're running out.
Oh, we're running out, yeah, that's good. Okay, we've already talked about most of this.
Let's see if this video plays.
This will show you a little bit.
Hello, my name is Hanne van der East. I work at the Sociology Department here at USC, and I teach Sociology 101 online. So I knew nothing coming in, and I came here completely new and just took an introduction, just a short, 20-minute session, just to kind of learn what the options were. Basically, I got to see that there was this double video screen setup, and there were microphones available, there were cameras available, and basically I could get help with the process every step along the way. The distributed learning studio kind of has it all in that they do have the equipment all present over here. They have the free service. Not every service on campus is free. I had to do very little if I didn't want to do anything. I ended up liking doing a lot of it myself. And so what was really helpful is that I could actually enter the studio on my own time. Nobody needed to be there. I just had my Carolina card. I could come here, I could scan it, walk in, and get to work. And obviously, the first few times there was somebody to assist me with starting up the computers, and there was technological help available, but I could do it on my own time, after hours, before hours. For my videos, I ended up using a fairly simple gray background that they have on hand over here. There's a variety of backgrounds available, so you can use a picture of the horseshoe as a backdrop, but they also have different photo backgrounds and a green screen. So if you have something you would like to demonstrate in the background or something you want to superimpose yourself over somehow, the green screen option is available here as well. What I used for this course was still pretty basic. There's a lot more available. So what I used was just basic PowerPoint, Camtasia editing software, which is a really, really straightforward editing program, and the video and the audio, so the cameras and the microphones over here. There's lots of other stuff available. So there's this light board over here where you can basically either write your equations or your main points or your theories on this see-through board that you can be in front or behind. There's also an overhead camera, so if you have something you want to demonstrate with your hands, you want to make something, or you want to, say, write an equation or write a matrix, you can basically film your drawing process on the overhead camera. They also have virtual reality here. I've seen demonstrations, and so I know people have used it in retail to visualize a retail environment. They have helped me caption all my videos. I have not needed to do a single thing myself, and now all my videos are fully accessible, which is really awesome. Obviously, making a video is a bit of an upfront investment. But it is a very worthwhile investment because if you do it right, you can really increase student engagement this way. Basically, with every step along the way, they can help you out, and it really makes it so much easier to focus on teaching rather than figuring out all the technological aspects of a somewhat daunting process.
Sorry, went over our time a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
If you have any
If you have any
questions, I'll ask us.
Yeah.
All right, first let's thank